Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. You can visit our website, holybatcast.com, or find us all over social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, and you will find us. We are also on Patreon, so if you love the show and you want to help support us, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big old thank you to our patrons. You guys are amazing. You don't have to be this generous, but you are, and I hope you know it's appreciated. So just a big old shout out to our patrons out there. You guys rock. We're a proud part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. You can check out those shows at rf4rm.com. And finally, as always, I am your bat host, Andy DiGenova. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads. Yeah, I think that's it. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Happy New Year, everybody. It's been a minute since we've had the episode, or had an episode. But, you know, Christmas, New Year's, a lot going on. But we are finally back, and we are going to do the real bona fide deep dive review with spoilers of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And joining me for all that fun, first of all, it's been a minute since he's been on because he's been busy and then he's been sick and he's starting to feel a little better. And so he is gracing us with his presence today. We appreciate it. It's Jamie. Hi, Jamie.
It's my fault. I don't know about gracing with presence, but, you know, I kept saying we have to put this off, and then got messed up and sick. So, you know, we should have done this, I don't know, 2 weeks ago?
Probably.
Just now getting around to it. So my bad, y'all. My bad.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, Brendan hasn't seen it yet either.
Well, I mean, he's at a little bit of a disadvantage. So
how's that?
Well, he's Australian.
That's just a catch-all disadvantage.
we have to be very understanding of the hang-ups that will cause in many things in someone's life. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you're back. And so I've called in one of our favorite guest stars who joins us now and again on here and on Real Fans. It is Mr. Preston Willis. Hey, Preston.
Fellas, happy to be joining you to talk about Aquaman. Yeah, I'll happily be a sit-in anytime you need me.
Well, we appreciate it. And I had to start threatening Jamie and Brendan last week. I'm like, listen, I'm about to call Preston. And they're like, I think you have to call Preston. I was like, okay, that's fine. I will. Especially because after I saw the movie, you immediately messaged me being like, I'm glad we saw the same movie.
Oh, you're exactly right, man. Yeah, we'll certainly get to that in a bit. But yeah, excited to talk about this, man. Get into all the spoilers and dig in a little bit.
For sure. So looking forward to it. Before I do all that, got to give a shout out to our pals over at Manscaped. So cheers to the new year from our friends at Manscaped, because your resolutions shouldn't be the only things that are well kept. 2024 is a time for new heights, new opportunities, and a new look for your Times Square balls. Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Whether you're looking to maintain a trim or go for that clean-shaven look, this trimmer's got you covered. Trusted by over 10 million men worldwide, now is your time to get a grip on your grooming with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. Happy New Year or happy new balls. Anyway, I think it should be everyone's New Year's resolution to, take better care of yourself one way or another, and Manscaped's a good way to do it. I love my Manscaped products. I actually gifted some Manscaped to some friends who shall remain nameless this Christmas because I'm like, might as well. It's something that's actually useful that they'll actually be able to take advantage of instead of, something cute that they throw in a closet. So Manscaped, all their stuff is awesome. The trimmer is the best one that you can buy. I use it, I don't know about daily, every other day. The Handyman, I love that too. That's the face shaver. The Weed Whacker for your nose and ear hair. The deodorant. It's the only deodorant I use now. The cologne. Anyway, lots and lots of stuff that's going to make you look good and smell good and feel good. So go to manscaped.com, do a little perusing, see if anything strikes your fancy. And if it does, just use that promo code BATSCAPED. Get the 20% off, get the free shipping. You can't beat it. And I think you're going to be very happy with what you get. So anyway, I know my friends here, they appreciate their Manscaped products as well, and I think you will too. So go to Manscaped, make it part of your New Year's resolution. I think you're going to like it.
But only if you like to have your loved one tell you how good you smell on a regular basis.
See? And that, I mean, that does happen. Just the other day, before Catherine left town and left me all by myself at home, which is fine because it gave me a way to go see Aquaman again. But yeah, she was like, "Oh, you smell good." And I was like, "Sure, Manscaped, you know." So anyway, yeah, go check it out. See if anything looks good and use that promo code. Save the money and buy yourself something nice, and you will also be supporting Holy BatCast. So everybody wins, and I got to thank everybody who's already done that. Any of you out there who use that promo code, you guys are awesome. It is very much appreciated, and it helps us out more than you know. So, yep, go to manscaped.com, use that promo code BATSCAPED, and that would be awesome. Now, let's get to the subject, the topic at hand. It's time to jump in the deep end with Aquaman. It's Aquaman, the sequel to the first film 5 years later. 5 years, wow. And also the official end to the DCEU. So, tons to talk about. So, here we go. Let's jump in the water. It is time to discuss Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom brings back pretty much everybody from the first film. You know, Jason Momoa is back as Arthur, Patrick Wilson is back as Orm, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is back as Black Manta, Amber Heard is officially back as Mera after all the scuttlebutt and everything. Nicole Kidman is back, Tamira Morrison's back, everyone's back with the exception of Willem Dafoe. He's the only one that we don't get to see again. Aw, sad. But directed again by James Wan, written again by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, and music done again by Rupert Gregson Williams. And let me just tell you guys, I went and saw the movie again Friday night. This is Sunday morning. Yesterday, I was being very productive around the house. This is what I do when my wife's out of town. I clean the house and I organize stuff. Ew. I also watch the movies. But as I was getting stuff around the house, I had the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom score on, and it looped probably 4 or 5 times. Y'all, this score is outstanding.
Much like the first.
Yes, very much like the first. It's awesome. So I've really been enjoying listening to it. So I thought I'd throw that out there before I forget. So anyway, it did come out on December 22nd. It's been out a couple weeks. It's not doing great. No one's really shocked by that, which is a shame. But we'll talk about all that. We will start spoiler free. You guys already heard my spoiler free thoughts with Catherine after we saw the movie on the 22nd. I'm so glad I went again this weekend because it has been a couple of weeks. And so much of it had faded over the past couple of weeks. And so I really, I'm glad I get to talk about it fresh. And so I want to hear your guys' spoiler free thoughts before we get over the spoiler wall. So Jamie, even though you're sick and you've had a rough week or two, you managed to watch Aquaman, and I appreciate it. So, spoiler-free thoughts.
I got to tell you, I'm a little bit disappointed. And only because a wildly successful first film, and you get this second film that's basically going to be the last shot in this particular universe with this, and you have this grand spectacle sequel, if you will. How are you going to do this movie and not put Barnacle Boy anywhere in it?
Yeah, some bullshit.
I'm saying, you know, to those of us who have been fans of Mermaid Man for many years, no Barnacle Boy in this movie series. I mean, it's heartbreaking. They deserve better.
I know. I'm sorry. I believe in you. You'll get past this.
Yeah, but for real though, I really really like this movie. I mean, I had a really good time watching it. I feel like it is a very natural continuation and extension of the first film. It's not without a few issues here and there, but I mean, guys, we're talking nitpick issues. I mean, we're talking you're going to hear me harp on a couple things that you've heard me harp for as many years as I've podcasted. But to throw this movie into a pile to say that it's some kind of an epic failure or slap in the face to the universe, or I don't even know what the narrative is because I'm not following as much social media chatter about movies as I used to. But judging by the poor box office performance that I'm hearing about and not tracking for myself, I have to believe that that kind of narrative is happening somewhere. And I just have to shrug my shoulders and go, really? This is where we're at. I don't know what you expected from the sequel to the first film, but for me, I mean, this met and or maybe even in some cases exceeded my expectations. I definitely want to give a shout out once more because I had so many problems with this for so many years. The restraint shown with the trailers.
Mm.
There was plenty in this film that was not anywhere near a trailer. And I, for one, always like sitting in a theater and getting pleasant surprises because I didn't know necessarily what to expect. I will, gosh, I don't know if I should say this until we get over the spoiler wall or not. So I'm going to go ahead and do so just because I don't want to run the risk of ruining it for anybody who hasn't had a chance to see it yet. But somebody bookmark for me that we have to come back and talk about the trailer when we cross the spoiler wall so I don't forget. I think all
I will say, and Catherine and I mentioned it in our spoiler-free reaction, is what I was impressed with, and maybe this is where you're going, is we saw the trailers and there were beats in the trailer where we thought we knew what they were and what was happening. And then when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, that is not what I thought was going to happen there. That's not the
yes.
beat that I thought I saw.
We're along the same lines, but I take a deeper issue with it. So again, let's come back to that when we get over the wall, just so I don't screw something up for somebody. Excuse me. The characters I think were great. I think Orm maybe is the standout in this film for me. If I have any disappointments character wise, and this is going to come off way harsher than I really want it to, I think maybe Black Manta, because even though he becomes the chief villain in this film, I almost feel like he's underdeveloped, and I can't overly criticize the movie for that because we got a fair amount of development with him from the first, and his motivations are pretty straightforward and simple. So I don't suppose we need to get overly complex or spend a lot of time in his head to realize where he's at and what he's trying to accomplish. So on one side, I feel like I wanted more of him, but on another side, it's like it was enough. I know what he's there for. So again, I don't feel like the movie is without fault or problem, but I do feel like there is so much more to like than not in this film. So much more.
Awesome. I will also chime in because you were saying you weren't really sure what the conversation was about, who liked it, who didn't. I will tell you this. This is a very unique movie where I have literally seen reactions across the board. I have seen people who loved it. I've seen people who have hated it. And I've seen a lot in between. A lot of people go, it was fine. It was good enough. It wasn't bad. And everything along the spectrum, which is interesting because usually it's kind of a love it or hate it thing, especially with superhero movies. And this one, I feel like it's all over the place. So your mileage definitely may vary.
Interesting.
Preston, what about you? Spoiler free.
Hey, spoiler free, man. I'm in good company here for my opening statement, if you will. I just have to say, trust in James Wan.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, preach.
When has the guy let us down? I can't think of a time, to be honest.
Never. No.
Exactly. He delivers once again with obviously his follow up to Aquaman. One thing that I love about these Aquaman films, and it really stands out to me, is I feel like he made them. And again, I have no idea, but I feel like he made them with no guarantee of a next one.
Yes.
There is so much goodness efficiently, and this is a huge compliment, obviously, put into these things that it's so impressive. And as much as I would love a trilogy, hell, give me 4 or 5, I'm really happy and really content with the 2 movies that we have. They feel very complete. If you were a fan of the first one 5 years ago, whenever that was. That's insane. It was 5 years ago. I really don't know how you could not be a fan of this, as it's literally kind of, as Jamie and Andy has said, it's kind of just the bigger, flashier, expanded version of what we've gotten previously, right? It's like a true sequel. Looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, the landscapes, the suits, the action, I mean, it's all superb. Jason Momoa, oh my gosh, he gets to be Jason Momoa in this movie, continues to apparently be having the time of his life. I love what Patrick Wilson and Yaya brought to the table. Manta, oh my God. I mean, he looks and is so freaking cool, right? Maybe a little too late to catch it, but this thing looked amazing in IMAX. Andy, you might be able to speak
Yeah.
to that as well.
Yeah.
I saw it in 3D. I'm assuming you saw it just in 2D. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yep.
It was a hell of an experience. I know I told Andy opening weekend it was kind of the best IMAX experience I've had since Way of Water last year, and that's quite the compliment. So, man, this was just fun, and I just kind of find myself, pouring one out for the DCEU. Good times were had, but very excited for what's to come.
Some good times were had.
Some good times were had.
It's a bumpy road, but I had fun.
Yes.
I don't mind a bumpy road. I mean, all three of us saw the same movie, and I even messaged Jamie after he saw it. I was like, I'll tell you, you and Preston and our friend Paul Shirey, you guys all make me feel like I'm not crazy because of how much I enjoyed this movie. Because we all saw the same one. It is not without fault. I also have nits to pick, which we will discuss in spoilers. But I will say, having gotten to see it a second time in IMAX, some of those nits went away, which was great, which is what you want to happen. And then the ones that are left are so minor that they don't really take away my enjoyment of the film. I love the first film. I think it's a top tier superhero film. I love James Wan. This guy speaks my language and I love what he does. And I loved what he did with the world of Aquaman. And as both of you said, and I think as I said on the spoiler free episode, this is just a natural, organic extension of the first film. If you love the first film, which I do, you're going to like the second film because it's very much in line with it in all ways it could be, in tone and in style and in action and in narrative. But even though it is a natural extension of the first film, I applaud them for not just remaking the first film. Never at any point did I feel like, oh, they're doing that again, which you get in sequels, and it happens all the time. But they managed to make it feel like a natural part of part one without just doing part one again. It is the next chapter, and I think it does that very, very well. And to your point, Preston, I loved it about the first film, and especially with the first film, James Wan definitely was like, I may only get one shot at this, so I'm going to put everything in the Aquaman movie that I want to see in the Aquaman movie.
Yeah.
And he did it, and I always said that the magic trick he pulled off was, even though he fit in so much, it never felt overstuffed. It all was in service of the story, and somehow it all worked. And you're right, with this, it also feels like a complete story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. And when it ends, even though I would love another one, we all know that's not in the cards, especially after the box office, I can feel very satisfied where I'm like, oh, they didn't get to pay this off, or oh, they left us hanging on this. They didn't. He told a complete story here in the second film with a conclusion where you're like, you know what? That is a good ending for these two films. And so I was very satisfied with that. So I had a blast with this on the first viewing, and I think I appreciated it even more on the second viewing. Because, yeah, you always have to get over those expectations and everything. And so I don't think it's spoilery, but you did mention, Preston, and it's one of the things that I have seen a little bit of back and forth about is Jason Momoa is a little too Jason Momoa this time.
Uh-huh. I could see that.
Yeah, and I get that.
That man has chewed a whole lot of very expensive scenery in 2023. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And in Fast X, I welcomed it with open arms.
Oh man, yeah.
In this, I did not mind it at all, but I do think it is a valid observation. What's funny is, and again, this isn't spoilery, so I say let's address it now, is coming out of it on the 22nd, I didn't say it on the spoiler-free review, but I think that it might be something that Jamie was alluding to, is not all the humor worked for me.
Sure.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Some of the jokes I thought were like, and most of them were from him. And I think that it felt to me like they were letting him improv. And I love Jason Momoa. We all love Jason Momoa. He is likable. He is fun. He's exuberant. He's great. But he's not Robin Williams when it comes to improv, okay? So I do think that some of his improv jokes, they're not cringe, but they're kind of, they're not great either. Like when he calls Orm Castaway, where I'm like, okay, was that a 20-year-old joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, where you're and so some of those jokes didn't really work for me, but there were plenty that did. But what's funny is I crashed our friends Eric and Joe's review of this on The Fire Rises. Eric accidentally sent the link to a group message instead of just to Joe, and so I called in. And it was the one thing Eric mentioned while I was on, is he goes, yeah, Momoa is just too Momoa-y for me. And I'm like, what's funny is I didn't think of it in those terms. I just thought, oh, some of his jokes didn't work, but I think it's the same nitpick, but from two different angles,
Sure.
And so it's one of those things, it didn't really bother me. The jokes that were not great the first time just kind of washed over me the second time. They didn't really even, I didn't even mind them. But it's one of those nitpicks where even though it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the movie, I'm like, I get that. I get it.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you just said there, because we're going to talk about some of it in a minute.
Okay. I'll also say this, and again, I don't think it's spoilery, but it's something that you said, Jamie, is that Orm is kind of the VIP, not the VIP, the MVP. Yeah, you know what I mean. The MVP of this movie. And I mean, he was great in the first film too, but I'm going to say something controversial, but we're friends, right? I can say this.
Oh,
You're in a safe place, Andy.
We're in a safe space. Patrick Wilson is a better actor than Jason Momoa.
Uh-huh.
He's also a better actor than Amber Heard. And so James Wan is very smart to go, I am pulling Orm to the forefront and I am letting him do a lot of the heavy lifting because Patrick Wilson is really good. And so I think it was kind of a stroke of genius to make him the one who partners up with Arthur. And again, that's not throwing shade at Momoa. I love Momoa. I just talked about loving Momoa. He's so charismatic and likable. I like him. But as far as doing the heavy lifting acting wise, it was smart to let Patrick Wilson do a lot of that.
Hey, you can still love a guy and call a spade a spade. It is what it is. That's true.
So I again, especially on the second watch where I was like, yeah, Orm is really steering this ship, and I think that was by design. James Wan and Patrick Wilson are best friends. He knows what he's capable of, and so I think it was really smart to go, okay.
I hadn't considered any of that, but it makes sense as I'm listening to you say it now.
Yeah. Well, and
I also agree with you. I mean, I've said right along that, some actors are just better at the craft than others. And that's not to say that they aren't competent and able to do a job in a specific way and get the point across. And sometimes that's all you need. And as you said, I love Jason Momoa. He's one of my favorite actors to watch. I mean, I'm not going to say he's one of my favorite actors, but he's one of my, usually when I see he's involved in a project, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to watch it just because he's in it. And that goes clear back to Game of Thrones. So, I mean, yeah. I'm in for the long haul with this guy. But is he a Denzel Washington, or is he a Christian Bale or something like that? No, he's really not. But that's okay. He doesn't have to be. He's who he is.
Yeah.
There are people who have had decades and decades long careers doing exactly what this guy's doing. That's being them. Like Clint Eastwood. Yeah. I love Clint Eastwood. I think he's great. But let's face it, Clint Eastwood is Clint Eastwood, 99 out of 100 times when you're watching a Clint Eastwood movie. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he does things in a certain way, and that's what people like about him, and that's why they go to see him in a movie, is because that's what they want. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Jason Momoa is one of those guys, as opposed to somebody who can get lost in a role like Gary Oldman. Like, half the time you see Gary Oldman in a movie, you don't even realize it's him. Jason Momoa
Yeah.
ain't ever going to be that guy, and that's okay.
Right, totally. He stays in his lane and he's great at what he does. Sorry for the tangent, but I just got to call it out because we mentioned him in Fast X. And Jason Momoa is so likable and so charismatic that one of the biggest issues with Fast X is you find yourself rooting for him, and he's supposed to be the bad guy. But he's so likable that you want him to win. And I swear, in that movie, it had to have been a reshoot where he does something so evil, but he's the only one in the scene. And I'm like, they had to have inserted that because in test screenings, people were like, well, I was rooting for Jason Momoa.
God, that scene's great.
And it's a great scene,
what
but
you're
you
talking
know what I'm talking about? But it feels so like, oh, they put this in later because they were like, crap, people like him too much. We've got to show that he is the bad guy.
we need more.
Yeah. So anyway, so yes, I just wanted to call that out. And then it's something I mentioned on I think one of the trailer reactions where we talked about is something else no one wants to say out loud, but I'll say it, especially because, you know, the DCEU is dead, is James Wan didn't get to pick Jason Momoa or Amber Heard. But he did get to pick Patrick Wilson and Yaya. And, you know, like he made it work with the cast he was given, but he was given that cast. And so, you know, I think that he was very smart in using them and playing to their strengths.
Oh yeah. I mean, and they're great. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, for the most part, especially Yaya and obviously Patrick Wilson. I mean, man, they show up.
They're awesome. And again, I think that it is the core of the movie is really the Orm and Arthur partnership, the strained partnership. Very much, yeah, you know, Tango and Cash, like very 80s buddy comedy, like which I was into. But the two of them are so much fun together, especially because what I loved is that even though Orm, you know, gets a more featured role, the movie doesn't forget that he's lived under the ocean and he has had no time on the surface. And so there are just things where it's like, he wouldn't know what that is. He wouldn't know how the things on the surface work. And I was glad that the movie didn't forget that once they teamed up.
Right.
But anyway, we'll talk about all that in detail. I want to say, you know, I think we all agreed is like, if you like the first movie, this is 100% in line with the first movie. It is a perfect sequel to the first movie. It's not a perfect movie, but again, everything that was in the first movie, James Wan continues and builds on in the second. So it's what I said in the spoiler free is if you like the first movie, I can't imagine you not liking this one. And if you hated the first movie, well, you're probably going to hate this one because it's the same. So, just something to be aware of, but I'm glad that we all had a great time with it. And I did. It's epic. It's huge. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Like you said, in IMAX, it's freaking gorgeous. I'm glad I made that extra trip. I don't know what the budget was, but my God, whatever it was, it's all on screen. I think just the scope of the first film and of this film is just mind blowing. And it looks and feels like a comic book brought to life. And I think that's why I like it so much.
Shame on you.
I know, it's ridiculous. So let's get over the spoiler wall so we can speak more freely. We all loved it, but totally your mileage may vary, especially based on the reactions I've seen, because again, they've been all over the place. You know, I think that there are probably some bad faith reactions out there of people who, like, you know, have been rooting against it because of drama or baggage or whatever else. But as far as an entertainment movie-going experience, for me, checked all the boxes. So spoilers are going to happen. They are completely free in 3, 2, 1. Now we can talk spoilers.
Okay, so I'm going to circle back to this right now because I've been trying to keep it in the forefront of the trailer thing. And that is, and guys, this is probably more on me than I'm really, you know, I'm trying to throw it in somebody else's lap, but it's probably more on me for being focused on details when I'm watching certain trailers. Like I watched this trailer, I don't know how many times, but it was a lot because I really thought it was a good trailer and I enjoyed it and I liked it. But the issue I have with this trailer is they put a certain thing in the trailer. I mean, I just cut to it. We're over the wall. So this is your own fault if you're here. The part where it shows them kind of sitting out in the front yard of the lighthouse, on a sunny day and they're, seem to be enjoying themselves and everything else, you kind of feel like that's where you're coming into the movie,
Yeah.
watching the
Yeah.
And the truth is, that's where you go out of the movie at.
Yeah.
Many times people have heard me say how much I hate it when they put the end of a movie in a trailer. They did it here, but they did it with a lot of restraint because they weren't trying to show you some massive piece of the climax to hook you in. But the mistake that they made, at least from my perspective, is I remembered that the whole time I was watching the movie. So at a certain point, I realized what a happy ending this thing was going to be, instead of the speculation that we put out there of, will they kill Orm? Will they kill Mara? Will they kill Atlanta? Will they kill his father? Will they kill everybody? Will they kill a couple of them? Gosh, we don't know, but we feel like the stakes are super high and we know Manta's coming for everybody, right? But there just becomes a certain point where if you remember that scene and you remember what you thought about that, and again, maybe it's on me for my expectations or presumptions, you realize it isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it kind of took away from the stakes of the movie, but to play devil's advocate to myself, knowing that this was the last time we were going to be here, I was kind of glad that Aquaman got this happy ending and somebody didn't have to be sacrificed for the sake of just being gone. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's funny is I remembered that scene from the trailer too, and about halfway through the movie, I realized, oh, we didn't see it, and I immediately was like, oh, they cut it. I honestly, it didn't even dawn on me, oh, that was going to be the ending. I was like, oh, they must have not used that after all. Okay, well, whatever. And then when it wasn't the ending, I was like, oh, okay, there it is. So, but I understand your point, especially if you were like, oh yeah, no, if it's not the beginning, it's going to be the end.
And here's kind of an interesting perspective. I don't know how I managed to do this. I literally did not watch the trailer for
Oh
this movie.
wow.
I have gotten to where in theaters I am AirPodded up during the trailers.
Oh really?
Yeah, I have mentioned it before, but I've gotten more serious about it. Like, I am going to see everything anyway, and I really just am tired of, obviously we've had this conversation a million times about trailers, and I'm glad to hear that this one was actually, a good one, right? That didn't give everything away. But I just got so tired of that. I just don't pay attention to them anymore.
Good for you.
So I literally, I mean, of course there were moments I heard and stuff like that, but I never saw this trailer in full at all. So it was really, really cool and really refreshing just to be able to start this thing and be like, I don't know where this is going. You know what I mean? It was, it was nice.
Well, and right along those lines, and what Jamie is saying is, because of the trailer, because of the drama around Amber Heard, there was a lot of speculation of like, oh, they're going to kill her in the first 10 minutes, or, and then, in the trailer, there are certain things where like, oh my God, they're going to kill the dad. Oh my God, they might kill Atlanta, and God forbid they might kill that baby. And there was a rumor making the rounds that they were going to kill the baby, which is why test screenings went so poorly, is people just couldn't get over the fact that they killed the baby. And then I loved it. Like, you watch the movie and I'm like, I don't think they saved the baby through reshoots. I think that baby never died. I don't believe that, because there's too much in the movie where that baby was not going to be dead. So I was like, and again, it goes back to like all these damn rumors that people put out there just to get traffic, is like, we just got to be better at ignoring them, because I saw so many headlines of like Aquaman 2 kills the baby. And I'm like, and it was like, it was complete 100% speculation just to get traffic, and it turned out to be completely false. So, anyway, my point is there was all the speculation of like, oh my God, everyone might not make it, and then in the end, everyone makes it. And I could see people who are like, oh, they saved everyone, but at the same time, I'm not mad at it. It's a superhero movie. Usually, everybody makes it, and I thought for sure that they were going to kill Tamira Morrison. And then when they saved him too, I was actually like glad in the moment, because I love his character so much. I love his relationship with Atlanta. And so I was like, I'm actually glad they saved him. And I will say,
so of two minds about the whole thing, though, because I do love pretty much all of these characters in some way or another. So it does take away from some of the stakes, if you will, to not do it, but at the same time, I'm so relieved that I didn't have to mourn anybody by the time I
Yeah. And I totally get that, but I also, again, I just remind myself, I'm like, we're not talking about a horror movie here where you need to have a body count. It's a superhero movie. Most people make it to the end. This isn't Scream 6 where someone can get stabbed 87 times and they're like, don't worry, he's cool, he's fine. And so yeah, like but I do get that of like every time you think someone's on the chopping block, they manage to make it. And yeah, back to the Amber Heard thing, like, with all that drama and scuttlebutt and rumor of like, oh, they chopped her down and they don't use her and they kill her and blah, 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 blah. I mean, yeah, she's not in the movie like she is in the first, but she was in the movie way more than I expected. And personally, I thought they used her just right. Like, I liked that she was there. I think the first movie is a better movie, but I think there are certain things this movie does better. And one of the things I think they do better in this movie is using Mara's powers. I love every time she came storming into a battle scene, she was going for it and her powers were so badass. And in the first movie, I felt like they held back on that for whatever reason. And in this one, she lets loose and it's awesome.
I actually have a point to kind of piggyback on with that because, you have the Amber Heard situation. You have all this talk of different reshoots. You have the talk of, at one point, Ben Affleck being in this movie. At one point, Keaton being in this movie. With all that talk and more, this thing felt so fluid and clean to me.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked, because in certain movies you can just notice, oh yeah, there's the reshoot. Oh yeah, they took something out, and I felt none of that throughout this runtime.
I completely agree. And that was something I was worried about because we know that they had to change direction a couple of times because of the greater landscape of DC on film.
Yeah.
And the end result, it's cohesive, it works, and it's great. And yes, because we know that Affleck and Keaton both shot cameos, you wonder, where was that?
Yeah.
But if you didn't know that, you would never miss it.
Mm-mm.
I felt like it was probably post-credit stuff.
It could have been. Yeah, that would have made a lot of sense. My other thought was in the ending, we're over the spoiler wall, when he's addressing the world, and they cut to different people around the world listening to Atlantis. I also thought they could have just cut to Bruce Wayne in Gotham watching,
Fair. Yeah.
So yeah, I was very impressed that you don't feel the reshoots, you don't feel anything that doesn't quite jive or gel. It all works really well. And I think that's again a credit to James Wan.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
humor. Do we want to talk about some of this humor? Because some of it, Andy, you raised the point. Preston, I don't know. You and I are still kind of getting to know each other in the realm of movie tastes and whatnot. You guys know by reputation how I feel about humor being overdone in pretty much anything, let alone in a superhero movie, let alone in a superhero movie in a universe that I'm very passionate about to begin with.
You're the opposite of the uncle in Mary Poppins who sings "I love to laugh."
I do love to laugh.
You sing "I hate to laugh."
I do love to laugh, but don't.
That's why you're a Ra's al Ghul guy and not a Joker guy.
Yeah,
so serious. You're like Coco Woman, Pocahontas. So serious.
So I had a real mixed relationship with the humor in this film because some of it was just and others of it I was genuinely laughing out loud. And the best way that I can describe it to you and my relationship with the humor in this film is right from the beginning where they're making the gag about the baby keeps peeing on his face.
Oh, yeah.
I was so over that instantly. And then they brought Mara into it, where the baby goes to pee on him and he sidesteps it, and she does her little, I'm going to call it her bewitched maneuver, where she kind of takes the stream and shoots it at an angle to get him. I found that hysterical. So, I mean, that's the best way I can describe my relationship with the humor in this film is I hated 1 second and I loved the next.
Yeah, that's great.
So much of a thing with me all the way through this movie, because at one point, Momoa would say some corny ass line and I'd just be like, ugh. And 20 seconds later, he says something that's got me giggling like a freaking kid on nitrous. It was so bizarre to me to have that kind of back and forth response for most of a runtime of a movie.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I thought, I agree with you. The humor was hit and miss for me. For me, the misses were mostly Momoa's little asides, like, hey, bring Wilson and let's roll, where I'm like, it's not terrible, but it's like, it's not great, and there's some of that, but enough of it did work for me that I was totally entertained. And I think the stuff that were like, I thought the cockroach bit was hilarious. I laughed.
Oh my God, dude, I had to almost pause the movie. I was laughing so hard at that.
It was great. Like
the whole bit, like he gets it off the tree and I'm like, oh my God, no, he's not. And he's like, what's that? It's a cockroach. He's like, you eat this?
Yeah. What did you say? Shrimp of the land. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, I was laughing so hard at that. And even his expressions while he's eating it were funny to me. So, some of the things in this movie really worked for me in that respect, whereas others did not.
On the end of things that did not, I can tell you on both viewings, and this is just a couple lines, so this is not like a big deal at all. There were a couple Brine King jokes that didn't quite land. I feel like my theater, like both times I saw it in theater, went like just dead silent on a couple Brine King jokes. So I just remember those in particular being like, all right, whatever, but not a big deal.
Although I don't think the jokes were the best, I just loved the Brine King that I didn't care.
Yeah,
I love him. And I love that they brought him and King Nereus back and made them part of the team. I thought that was awesome. And so, yeah, like the running joke about him losing his claw, like arm, isn't the funniest thing in the world, but I was amused by it. And I love that after the final battle, he walks up and he's missing his claw again. I love the design. I love his personality. I love that he got a bigger role in this. That made me so happy. And yeah, when he showed up and I hear that voice, I just turned to Catherine and I was like, Gimli. So yeah, it made me walk out going, I need an action figure of the Brine King.
With removable claw.
Yeah, exactly. with or without the claw. So, but yeah, like again, yeah, the humor was hit and miss. What's funny is you mentioned the part with Mara and the pee-pee.
Yeah.
I've seen some people like write off the whole movie because that moment.
What?
And I'm like, y'all need to lighten up. Like, come on. Especially because
they offended? Like, what's the problem?
I don't know. I guess they want her to be a badass warrior in every moment of her life. She can't be a wife and a mother who's messing with her husband, I guess.
I'm just saying that was, to me, worked so well.
It was a great payoff. Yeah.
I mean, I hated the idea in the first place. But the fact that they were like, hey, her powers would be able to do this. And, parents love playing around with each other. I just, everything about the back half of that works for me. Whereas, the front half, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's my relationship to the humor in this film. One may leave me laying high and dry, and another one may just have me in stitches laughing. For, what's the runtime on this thing? Right at 2 hours?
Right at 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for 2 hours, that's really where I was at. One thing would be like, okay, let's move on. And the next thing would be like, ha, 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 and repeat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. And again, after that moment, like the action scenes with Mara were fantastic. I mean, she almost takes down Black Manta herself.
Yeah.
Like she's almost got him until he blasts her. But like that sequence, that chase with, and I love that it's Mara and Atlanta. I love that it's the two of them on what is arguably one of the coolest movie vehicles I've ever seen, which is the Shark speeder bikes. Holy shit, those are great. And so yeah, Mara and Atlanta defending an invasion to Atlantis, and yeah, Mara almost gets him, which is awesome. And multiple times when she comes in with her powers raging, like she's badass. So I can forgive one comedic moment where she uses her powers to give her husband a hard time. I will say one of the things that, and I brought it up in the spoiler free, that I thought was it was one of my nitpicks coming out of the first viewing, but it was a nitpick that got much better on the second viewing. And ironically, it was the same thing that happened with the first film. Is walking out of the first viewing, I was like, oh, I just wish it had slowed down a couple more times for some quieter character moments.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that when I saw the first film the first time, is I was like, oh my God, it's a blast, but it moves and it just rocks and rolls from the beginning to the end. And I would have liked a little more of the quieter character moments. And then when you see it again, they are there and they really rise to the top. And that happened to me the second time watching this one. It's not the emotional gut punch that The Flash was for me, but those moments worked so much better the second time around, especially like I love the scene with Arthur and his father.
Yes, that's exactly the one I was going to mention.
That's a terrific scene where he talks about, the only thing you can do is keep going and you celebrate the
Yes.
wins, you mourn the losses, and then tomorrow you do it again. And I'm like, that hit me. That was a great scene and a great performance. But throughout, like the moment with Atlanta and her two sons, with seeing them finally together again, was really great.
That's true. And I love her, kind of making them vow that they're going to make this work,
Yeah.
and kind of reluctantly like, all right, let's do it kind of thing. Yeah. That was a really cool moment.
And Orm's final speech to Arthur about, you're better
Yeah.
at this than you realize, and give yourself some credit, trust your instincts. And like, that was such a great payoff to Arthur's arc of being like, maybe I'm not born to be king. Like, I never wanted this job, but now I have it and I'm not sure I'm good at it. And, dealing with a little bit of imposter syndrome as the king of Atlantis, and the one person who should be telling him, you're right, you're terrible at this, by the end of the movie is like, actually, you're not. Believe in yourself. And it's Orm. That moment really, really worked for me the second time around. And then finally, Arthur's final speech, the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like that music, we mentioned the music already, that beautiful, I don't want to call it the love theme because they don't use it for love, but it's sort of like the quieter emotional theme that was from the first film. They used it again in this film, but that's playing as Arthur gives his address to the world about our differences and working together. And it's this very inspiring thing. Like, I got a little teary eyed. And to be fair, right now, it's easier to make me cry than usual. So, we got a grade on a curve. I've gone through it over the past few months. So that could be part of it. But like it wasn't The Flash where I was freaking sobbing, or even the first film, that great hero speech that Atlanta gives is one of my favorite moments. But it was really effective. And again, the second time. So the emotional moments are there and they really resonated more strongly the second time for me. And so I was really glad about that, because the first time I felt like, oh, they were a little lacking, but no, I think that they're there and they will work better on subsequent viewings.
This is kind of a random moment, but speaking of emotional moments, and this is the opposite of a tear-jerking moment. This is kind of a fist pump moment. I just kind of thought of this when we were talking about Patrick Wilson and some of the stuff that he does in this movie. I love kind of the dynamic between him and King Nerys, how there is this distrust, and then I mean, there's obviously a moment where he could seriously screw him over, and he helps him, and thought that was awesome. I'm like, get it, that was cool.
So that's actually going to segue me into my biggest point with this film on the positive. And that is, we kind of saw it coming. I mean, we know what the film is. It's the buddy cop team up between these two brothers who've been at odds from the word go. And you guys can check the tape, go back to the first Aquaman movie. One of the things I loved the most about that movie was how it ended. When you're ready to talk, let me know. And I was like, damn, that's awesome. That's great. Because it establishes that Arthur is compassionate and he wants to, reason these things out and find out what makes you tick and open the idea to forgiveness and redemption and everything else. And that plays perfectly into this film in that I feel like Orm's redemption arc was handled flawlessly in this movie. The idea that he comes out of there, obviously he's still tense about, being locked up. He doesn't like his brother. He doesn't like the situation. None of that. And that's played very, very well. But as the movie goes along, his reactions, his gears turning, if you will, to see maybe the flaw of his ways, maybe the flaw of his perspective, and his heart and mind changing from that or to something else. All of that to me just worked tremendously well. And to the point where I feel like his redemption was truly earned by the end, but they also played it in such a fashion that there are some people that just aren't going to be like, well, okay, we realize you're okay now, so come on back. They had to play it differently in that, we're going to have to tell them that you died here, so kind of go off and do your own thing until we can find another way to smooth this out. All of that, brilliant, wonderfully, perfectly handled. And the fact that Arthur tries to extend that same hand at the end of this movie to Manta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you. You're not too far gone. And Manta's like, F you, there's no way I'm doing this. And he'd rather fall to his death than accept this extension of this gesture of let me help. Let me try to bring you over. Let me try to bring you back.
I thought that was cool too. I liked how he went out.
Yeah. The gesture on Arthur's part was very much the same. And Manta's like, I'm not having it. That they're establishing his heart is just too dark with this vengeance and this rage that he would rather die than accept help from this person whom he's vowed to destroy and crush. There were so many things of that level that I think this movie just absolutely excels at. But the Orm redemption arc for me was absolutely the highlight and the true star of this film.
I agree. And one of my favorite scenes is it's in the middle. It's when Orm and Arthur they're in the jungle and they're trying to make their way to Manta's lair where, they hate each other. And Orm is like, he says, he's like, oh, I was prepared my whole life because you tried to claim my throne. And Arthur's like, I didn't want your throne. The only reason I did it is because you were trying to destroy the surface world. You could have had your throne if you were such a dick or whatever, and I loved them getting more context on where the other one was coming from, where Orm was like, wait, you didn't come because you wanted to be king? And he's like, no, I came to stop you because you were killing people or whatever. And I just loved them having that conversation and really clarifying like where it was from, and Orm being like, oh, like this wasn't about ego. It wasn't about you trying to take my place. There was more to it than that. And I thought that was like, that's a great conversation. And that leads to how their relationship progresses. And talk about what it means to be a king and what you've got to do. And Arthur learning from Orm and Orm learning from Arthur, as all great buddy cop movies should be, where their strengths make up for each other's weaknesses.
Yes.
Right.
And that was almost played. I had to think about it for a second when they were having that conversation. Is like, are they retconning something? And I was like, no, they're just giving the perspective of this is exactly how it went down. And so much of it was a misunderstanding or mistranslation of a situation that led to these elevated confrontations. And it's like, wow, that is really freaking brilliant. Bless James Wan and everybody else involved with this script that they called that back. And I do also love, I don't remember if it was that conversation or another one that they had later on where they're like, that fight where we were, down there, I kicked your ass. No, I kicked your ass. And they were back and forth about that. I thought that was a pretty good humor moment as well.
Well, it wasn't the movie overall. And again, I think that's what makes it a great sequel is it does call back to moments in the first film. It builds on them. It gives them more context. And so if you love the first film, this picks up every thread it can from the first film without being too much where you're like, I'm lost because I haven't watched the first movie in a long time. Like it does it just right where it like you're right. The conversation about the fight and he's like, Mara saved you. He's like, yeah, but I had you, that kind of thing. And so like those callbacks to the first film, I love that in a sequel again, where it just feels like a continuation of the story. And this is one where you can watch the first one and the second one, and it just feels like one long story.
It's true.
And again, I just, this is the last thing I want to say about this because I don't want to make the whole conversation about it. But some of those moments where Orm, you can see Patrick Wilson in the role quietly processing in his head what really went down. And the look that he gives, his facial expressions, his body language, without saying hardly a word about it, you can understand that he is realizing I was wrong.
Yeah.
and that just made that whole arc of him coming back around so perfect to me. I just think I can't say enough good things about it, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, agreed. Let me tell you about another nitpick I had after the first viewing that bothered me less on the second. Is I had the impression, especially after the first time, is that they were trying to get the runtime down. And so
Yeah.
there are a couple montages in there where I'm like, I feel like this was two separate sequences that they then edited together. Like the beginning one where it's the actual action scene of Arthur stopping the pirates, which I love, by the way. I love him arriving on Storm, awesome. I want more Storm. I know
Yes.
I know I'm not gonna get him, but man, what a gorgeous looking character, and I just love him. Um, but like them intercutting that with him telling his son, I was like, oh, was that like two different things where they were trying to make it shorter, so they cut it together, and then later on, Arthur springing Orm from prison, for lack of a better term,
Hmm.
where the planning of the springing is intercut with the actual escape, and I was like, was that supposed to be two different sequences that they edited together just to save some time? And so that in the first viewing, I was like, I kind of, I think I would have liked them better if they'd have played out in real time a little bit more instead of going with the montage. And then in the second one, I think they flowed a lot better and it didn't bother me as much, but it was just something that I noticed the first time. But fortunately, James Wan is a good enough filmmaker that would, even if it was planned or not, I don't know. I'm just speculating. He's able to edit together in a way that makes it feel natural anyway. And it is a way to move things along quicker.
It really is. I mean, this one was 20 minutes shorter, obviously, than its predecessor there. So it definitely cut down some time. And I was, I found that interesting going in because I'm like, man, I think it's 2 hours and 4 minutes. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, with credits, I mean, this thing's, looking close to 150. And I don't know, I hate to say I was concerned about that, but it did kind of raise an eyebrow. But yeah, I mean, everything went together really well and really efficiently, but that's a really good point that could have very well been the case.
Yeah, again, it's speculation, but I just was curious. But again, in second viewing, it flowed, and I was like, oh, okay, it doesn't bother me as much. I will say another thing that I was concerned about going in is the stealth suit. I was afraid that he was going to change to the stealth suit, and that was
Yes.
what he was going to wear for the whole movie. They used it just right. I actually ended up loving how it looked, especially in the sun when they were on the desert trying to make their way to the water. I thought it looked awesome. It was like this beautiful shade of blue, but they don't short you on the classic suit, and you still get Jason Momoa in his Jason Momoa outfits. But it's something that I think James Wan did perfectly with the first one is using the different costumes just right and just enough. And I was very happy that the stealth suit didn't become the main suit. And I know that's nerdy. I know that's fanboy. Call me a fanboy, whatever. But it made me happy.
And I liked the invisibility.
Yeah,
Thought that was
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, I loved that whole sequence of them escaping and
Yeah.
those awesome skeleton warriors or whatever they were that were
Yeah.
badass, and the action scene there. And then I love the moment where Orm makes it to the water and he's laying there and the water washes over him, and then he just busts out. It's that's badass.
Hmm. That was a cool moment.
Yeah, so that was just cool, and I love them riding those crazy creatures, and again, all over the design work on the creatures and the world, and I mean, it's right up there with the first film, and I just love that they didn't repeat. Like in the trailers, I was like, oh, is that the Karathan from the first movie? It's not. Like they didn't bring. I mean, they brought enough back, but they did not bring. They didn't just repeat themselves. Like they had fun creating new stuff throughout to make it feel fresh. And I mean, for me, the greatest testament of stuff like that is I'm like, oh, do I want a toy of that? And almost everything in this movie I wanted a toy of. So
Right.
success.
They even had that the right phrasing for it escapes me, but it's almost like the Star Wars Cantina moment.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I'm glad you brought that up because that was next on my list is talking about expanding the world. That was such a fun thing where, oh my God, what was it called? I think they called it the Sunken Citadel, maybe? But it was
Maybe.
like, it was all these wrecked ships, right? And it's where outlaws and pirates go to hide. And you've got that main guy whose name I don't know, but I love that it was Martin Short. Talk about
Dude, yes. Oh, Kingfish.
yes, like one of the most random cameos or small
Yeah.
roles where I was like, how fun that I mean the first movie had a freaking cameo by um
Julie
Oh,
Andrews.
Julie Andrews.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
Julie
right.
Andrews in the first film. So here, Martin Short, why not? But yes, I loved that he had his cantina moment. It was so fun. Again, the design work that happened in there was awesome. Kingfish was a hoot for his one scene. So that was totally unexpected. That was something that they really kept out of the marketing, and it was a nice surprise.
It's become my benchmark for directors where I can say, I now deem you qualified to direct a Star Wars film. My dudes, I would love James Wan to get a hold of a Star Wars property because I feel
Hell
like
yeah.
you would get something unique, but so a part of that universe that would just be awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I said when I saw this. I'm like, okay, it's the first movie, but it's got a lot of Star Wars, it's got a lot of Lord of the Rings, and then by James Wan's own admission, it has a lot of Ray Harryhausen. But all that stuff, all those ingredients come together in a really great way, and it worked for me. Those Octobots from the
Oh,
Lost
yeah.
Kingdom,
Yes, those were so
they
cool.
were so cool and used very well within the story. Like it wasn't like, oh, we designed this thing and it's in it for a second. No, like they are a big part of Manta's arsenal. And then Manta's ship. It's like a giant
Oh,
hammerhead
yeah.
shark is awesome.
That shot, man, is so cool of it rising out of the water behind Patrick Wilson.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was very awesome.
That whole action sequence where Arthur and Orm finally get to Manta's base
Yeah.
within the volcano. Um, First of all, Randall Park, Stephen Shin, he had like 5 seconds of screen time in the first film. I like that he gets a lot to do in this one. I
Credit to the trailers. I didn't even know he was in this.
I love that. I love the moment where he's like, stop right there, and he closes the door. He's like, I'm sorry, I just didn't want you to hurt me. I thought that was funny. But anyway, that whole action sequence was so great. I appreciated the callback to the first film where every time they try to have a conversation, there's an explosion. Um, and in the first film, I was like, that's my only real nitpick of this movie. The rest of the movie is freaking great, but I was like, they did that one too many times. And it's funny that James Wan heard that because in this one, it only happens one time, and Momoa calls it out. Um, but anyway, my point is when Orm grabs that massive chain with the anchor,
Yes.
that is like complete Orm badass moment, and then he thinks he's going to take down Manta.
Yes.
Oh my god, and just gets blasted.
That was
I,
amazing.
I also love like they changed Manta's outfit in this one, and I thought he looked perfect in the first one, and I think he looks even more perfect in this one somehow. But I appreciated that there was 100% a story reason for it. And I didn't expect that. I just thought, oh, whatever, he changed his suit. But I love that it starts with his broken suit from the first one, and his mission is to fix it. And then as they discover the Lost Kingdom and the power source and everything, and then he gets the Black Trident, he doesn't need the suit anymore. And so that is why he doesn't have the power suit the second time. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think it was going to be a plot point, but I was impressed that it was.
The what I mentioned earlier about I would have liked a little bit more out of Manta. Again, it's not insufficient. Maybe it's just me being greedy because I think the Yaya is a great actor. I think Manta's a great character. I think I wanted more of him in the first film, so finding out he was going to be the main antagonist here, kind of lit me up a little bit, and I just I think I got to a point where I understood what they were doing with him. And it got to that point where Arthur and he have their little final showdown. And I'm like, great, here's what I've been waiting for, this payoff. And I felt shortchanged is way too harsh, but I just wanted so much more in that confrontation. But then it dawned on me, okay, now he's dealt with Manta. Now he's got to deal with this I can't even remember his name, the evil king behind Manta,
Right.
that was
Cordax.
possessing him, whatever. Okay, now we're going to deal with him. And then he was like gone in a flash. And I was like, maybe deliver a little bit of a stronger climax to this movie for me.
Man, I have to say that battle between Aquaman and Manta, a little short, but man, I thought it was so good, and the camera work in that sequence is so good. But I
Juan's
get where
fighting
you're coming
style on
from.
camera is always great. So I
Oh,
have no complaints about
yeah,
what was shown. I just complain about the length of what we got.
yeah. No, that's fair.
I agree with what both of you have said. One thing I will call out that I love is I love that Arthur and Manta lock horns multiple times throughout the movie. Where
True.
it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, nope, they're not going to meet till the end for the final battle. No, they have multiple run-ins, and I thought that was great. Speaking to your point, Jamie, I understand what you're saying about going deeper into Manta. I do get that. I think that my favorite moment with him, though, is where he says, I'm going to burn all of Aquaman's world to the ground, and I will make a deal with the devil to make that happen. And that's exactly what he does. I love that he essentially sells his soul to achieve this vengeance, and it ends up destroying him in the end. I mean, I thought that was great. And then that final battle, yes, it's awesome between the two of them. It is beautifully shot. It's amazing. To go back to the Star Wars comparison, it was like an amazing lightsaber duel with tridents, and it was
Yeah.
so good. But like both of you, it was so good. I just give me a little more. Just give me a little. I don't want to get too greedy, but yes, like it ends just a little too short, and I think that we could have just gotten a little bit more of it before the trident then makes its way to Orm. And so yes, I completely concede that point, but what we do get is freaking epic.
Listen, I'm super greedy, so I would tell you that if you gave me the underwater version of Superman versus Zod there, great. That's what I want. Go ahead and make the runtime 2:30 and make the additional 26 minutes that.
Yeah.
But, again, the quality was there. I just needed a little bit more quantity to really feel satisfied about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the finale of the first film is so big. It's so grand where Arthur shows up on the back of the Carathan, and it's this massive battle between all these different factions of Atlantis, the underwater kingdoms, and it's so huge. It's like a Lord of the Rings battle, and that's tough to top. And so I appreciate that they don't really try to top it. They give you a completely different type of finale, no less satisfying. But I love that this finale, yes, there's a larger battle happening outside, and also I love those, whatever you want to call them, zombie creatures from the Lost Kingdom with the green eyes. I think they're great. And so I appreciate that Nereus and the Brine King and Mera and Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta's actually there. I think the others are there fighting off those while Arthur makes his way to save his son. But the focus of that finale of really being Arthur versus Manta and then Arthur versus Orm, to make it smaller instead of trying to outbig the finale from the last time was just really smart.
I agree. And I wish more of these types of movies would learn that lesson. Stop trying to redo or outdo what you've already done. Sometimes smaller scale is just fine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into the whole comparative across the street thing, but my God, has Marvel lost their minds about that shit, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, the much more focused final battle on this, I think, was a very smart move. And again, no less satisfying than the massive one from the last movie. I will also say, when we're talking about fist pump moments, one of my favorite moments in the film is they've got that supersonic cannon. That's sort of their secret weapon at defeating Atlanteans. And they never say it, but I assume it's because Atlanteans living underwater, much like sea creatures, they use vibrations. And so this messes with them. And I love that Arthur calls in hundreds of whales to disrupt that cannon.
Oh, that was so awesome.
And the moment when it happens, and Stingray, who is Black Manta's like first lieutenant, and she doesn't have a lot to do, but I think she was cool. I'm like, I love that like Manta has his own Mercy Graves. I think that's cool. But yes, when they look around and they're just surrounded by whales, I was like, hell yeah. That's one of my favorite moments.
That was awesome.
That was great. One more thing. God, I knew I wasn't going to say anything else, but I feel like it's worth calling out is Nereus doesn't trust Orm any more than, Arthur wants to trust him, I guess, at some point. But Nereus is still like, well, I understand why he sprung you, but you don't get a gun, you get an axe, buddy.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
he has that moment that Preston was talking about where he sees him in trouble and he's trying to get him to help, and Orm just, vanishes in that moment. You're like, oh, what a prick. And then 2 seconds later, there he is saving him. And you're like, I knew it the whole time. And then, Nereus has that moment where his boys are off to the side and Orm's off to the other side. And he's like, takes the rifle from one of his boys and hands it to him and gives him that nod. Like, okay, now you have my trust. Again, that arc of his redemption with everybody really is so awesome to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then him being tempted by the Black Trident, by the dark side, by the One Ring, if you will.
Yeah.
Him being tempted by that. And again, like, I mean, I'm of two minds of it, kind of like some other things where I'm like, oh, like I wish we'd gotten more Manta and, before this happened, but the core of the movie is about Arthur and Orm, so it still has to come down to that, where Orm is on this path to redemption, and this could screw it all up. And it's a great dramatic moment of him having the trident. I mean, he saves Mara's life, and Arthur, appealing to him after this, everything they've been through, being like, we are brothers, and you are not alone, and we're in this together. And then them bringing Kordax down together. And that final badass moment of Arthur whipping his trident so it smashes right through the Black Trident like Robin Hood in an arrow.
Yep.
So cool.
I was half hoping that Catherine would be involved with this conversation, because I was going to ask her if she picked up the same vibe from that scene that I did, and that really felt like a Jack Burton moment to me.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
He throws the knife and it doesn't work the first time. So the knife gets thrown back at him and he throws it again and it works perfectly the second time. I mean, maybe I'm reading way too much into that, but that's kind of how that felt in that moment.
Well, now that you say that, Jamie, that is something this movie could have used a little bit of. I mean, Kurt Russell, come on.
Every movie could use more Kurt Russell. Let's be honest. I'll take him in anything. I don't even care. But yeah. I mean, but we get more Dolph Lundgren, and I'm not mad about it.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
I love that he was even more involved in this than the first.
Again, yeah, I love that Arthur's team expanded to include Nereus and the Brine King. I just thought that was so great.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a movie where they run from giant grasshoppers. And
yeah, they do.
And again, I just love the go for itness of James Wan. Of like, no, he's just going for it. He, no pretension, no apologies. This is a big old fantasy film and nothing is off the table. And that was what I loved about the first film. And this is more of the same. They land on this lush, weird, warped, magical jungle where, yeah, there are giant butterflies and man-eating plants and giant grasshoppers. And it's awesome. I just want more of that, more of this. Yes, you know what? Like all in. I'm not embarrassed to do anything.
While watching this movie and that scene in particular, Jamie definitely came to my mind because Jamie, I know you love your big monstrous creatures. Okay.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Right?
Boring people.
Yeah, that's right.
like, how do you not want monsters and creatures in your freaking superhero movie? Why would you not want that?
That's right.
And that's what both of these movies have delivered for me is like, yeah, this big epic comic book action where everything is on the table, but it's not afraid to still tell a human emotional story at the core of it. And that's what you need. Because listen, I know I love the nonsense and I love the colors and I love all that. I love the eye candy. Of course I do. But my favorite movies are also the ones that hit me emotionally. And this one's not afraid to do that too. And I love that about it,
Exactly.
Yep.
I love my entertainment value. I love my character moments, but by God, the best movies are the ones that provide me with both in the same feature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you watch trailers, and then you look back at these movies, you think like, oh, my favorite part of this is going to be whatever. When Arthur and Manta have their trident battle. And yes, it's a great moment. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but then when the movie's over, you're like, actually, I think one of my favorite moments is when his dad talks about him, what it means to be a hero. Like, like, and it's always those smaller emotional moments that you can't sell in a trailer, but that's what makes a movie sing. And again, I was happy to report that on second viewing, those moments really rose to the top.
So Preston, have you seen this more than once or just the one time?
Yes, I've seen it twice.
Okay, so you've each seen it twice. I've only seen it the once. It's been a couple days now, so maybe my memories are a little bit foggy. But if I'm not mistaken, at one point the baby is in peril and sends out like the telepathic message to Arthur.
Yeah.
Right.
It might be cliche, it might be silly, it might be over the top or whatever, but I would almost rather that kid in that moment set a signal to someone other than daddy to come and help him out of the situation that he was in. Like, I don't know, a megalodon shark or something.
Yeah, we've kind of, obviously the opening of the movie, we learn he can do that with the fish. So yeah, that could have been a cool little development there.
I love that moment where they realize that Junior is talking to the fish.
Yeah.
And Momoa, I think it's a great performance where he's like, like it's that moment when you see your kid take its first steps.
Right.
Or say their first word where you're just like so excited and so happy and just so full of joy. And I think Momoa sold that perfectly. We're like, oh my God, look at what you're doing. You're talking to the fish. Like I totally got that. That rung very true to me.
Yeah.
You want to talk about another one of my nitpicks? Because this is a nitpick that did not go away in the second viewing. It's so small, but I don't want to be unfair and only talk about the stuff I love. I'll talk about the couple little things that I didn't love. The two big needle drops in this one,
a little overdone.
Like Born to Be Wild, and then oh my God, what's the other one? Something in the Sky, Signal in the Sky,
Spirit in the Sky,
Spirit in the Sky. Both of those, they're just so overdone. And I was like, oh, really? These are all you got? Like I would have much rather it be more score or it's just something a little less obvious.
Sure.
I will say the Born to Be Wild remix that plays over the credits actually was pretty badass. But in the opening montage when it's Born to Be Wild, I was just like, oh, like, can we put Born to Be Wild off to the side for a bit? And then Spirit in the Sky, like it was in Suicide Squad, it was in Guardians,
yeah.
It's had its moment. And so again, it's a small one, but I just was like, I wish you'd have picked something else.
No, I'm with you 100% there. A lot of times needle drops can just work my nerves for exactly the reasons that you're talking about. Like, as an example, I think nobody does it better than the likes of, say, Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese, because they don't always use the ones that you're familiar with. Sometimes the music just fits the moment perfectly, and you're like, you want to check out the artist or the album or the song after the movie to know more versus something that you've heard countless times in your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like, and not just this movie, but a lot of them get lazy in that respect, and it bothers me, and I'm with you on this.
Yeah. It's minor, but it was there. And then the other one is that I love the ending of this movie. I truly do. Like I said, I got teary-eyed during Arthur's speech where you're seeing the whole world and and he's like, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm the king of Atlantis. It was so working for me emotionally. And then it ends with him being like, I'm Aquaman. Woo!
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that.
And I was like, no, you had it. You didn't need to do that. But again, that was just more of that Momoa being Momoa thing. And I was like, I just wish it wasn't the last moment in the movie.
I completely understand where you're coming from. The way I kind of took that, I kind of felt like that was Jason Momoa just signing off.
Sure. He does a mic drop. Literally, he drops the mic. Yeah.
It also feels like that moment where the camera's still rolling and somebody just felt it was a good idea to not yell cut in that moment or chop it out in the editing room or something like that. So yeah, it's, as Andy mentioned, so much of this felt like him improvising. I definitely feel like this was the number one in that respect.
For sure. So again, it's the little thing. going back to Arthur and Orm, I also loved their conversation of Arthur telling Orm about all the foods on the surface.
Yes.
like
Listen, if you can walk out of this film not wanting a burger and a beer, you're a way stronger human being than I am.
exactly. And again, the lines, it feels very Momoa being Momoa, where he's like, little za with pepperoni. Like he's being very Momoa. But at the same time, like I loved what he's saying of like, where he's like, he goes, yeah, you've missed out on all these experiences because you're prejudiced. Why don't you think about that? But it's so true where it's like, you're in this, on this adventure, this death defying adventure. And you're like, you know what, when all this is over, we've earned a big greasy cheeseburger. And I'm like, hell yeah, we have.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get that too. And then I love that the payoff for Orm is he gets his big greasy cheeseburger. It made me happy. Wearing a Jabberjaw t-shirt, by the way.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh my God, so fun.
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah, wearing a Jabberjaw t-shirt. And I love that, he's free. And again, like his farewell and him jumping off that iceberg, I thought was just awesome. And then, yeah, he goes, first thing he does and goes and get a big greasy cheeseburger because that's what his brother told him to do. It just made me happy. It was something like when it happened, I was like, oh, of course we need to pay that off. And then the extra payoff in the mid credits where he puts the roach on it is so funny.
And again, in both of those ending sequences for Orm scenes, Patrick Wilson, without hardly a word, I don't think he spoke a word in either one of those. He does pay with like an ancient pirate doubloon. Yeah, he pays with like a doubloon or something.
It's so funny, yeah.
But everything that he does in those moments, I wasn't like, oh, but I kind of cracked a smile, like, yeah, okay, that works. In both cases, was everything was just sold by his face and his expressions. So credit to him and a job well done there.
Yeah. And sorry, we talked about Storm, or we mentioned Storm. I still love Storm. I think he's awesome. Topo, I love Topo.
I could have gone either way on that.
Oh.
I wasn't offended by it, but at the same time, I was like, this feels like it was completely unnecessary here, and they just wanted some kind of an oceanic creature presence in this scene, which is fine, but I could have been fine without.
I love Arthur having animal friends. Like that is so Aquaman. And I love that they used Topo again, almost as kind of a wink to the people who complained about the drum playing octopus in the first film, which I'm like, y'all, again, lighten up. And I love that they're like, oh, you didn't like that? Well, guess what? He's a character this time, and he's going to team up with Aquaman. So I hope you choke on it. But I loved his design. I thought he looked great. And again, story perspective, it makes sense. It's like, we can't use comms because this is a secret mission. So you have to send it the old fashioned way through a messenger. So I just love that he was a character and he was there to help him out. And I thought he was cool. And the final save of Arthur and Orm escaping the collapsing lost city, and Storm comes in with Topo, and they latch on to Topo to get pulled to safety. We saw that shot in the trailers of Storm jumping out of the water with Arthur on his back. I never noticed that Orm was there too. And I just thought that was a great kind of button at the end of the big finale. I was like, hell yeah, Storm and Topo saving the day. Yeah. All right. Great.
Agreed.
I thought I want that action figure too, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right? No kidding, man.
And they made one. They made one of Topo.
Oh hell.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
And I mean, after the movie, even Catherine's like, yeah, we need a Storm and an Arthur in the house. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, Storm would be awesome.
Yeah. Yep. They sell him with I don't know if it's with Arthur, but yeah, they do.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, the McFarlane. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
I see it right here.
I kind of want it.
It's awesome.
Not that I need more toys in my house, but I do want it. All right. Trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, I feel like we hit most of the salient points. Anything that we have not brought up that you guys wanted to address?
I'm surely going to think of something about 10 seconds after we get done, but I think I've gotten across the major points I wanted to at this juncture.
Oh, this is a funny little tidbit I noticed. Andy, your wife correctly noted Yahya Mateen's booty, you know.
Yes, yes.
But if you'd allow me, I need to know Patrick Wilson's gym regimen because that dude is jacked in this thing. I was like, what? I did not know Patrick Wilson had it like that.
Well, yeah, especially during like his big emergence from the water. Oh,
Exactly.
hell yeah. Well, that's one of those things that, I think I want to say we talked about it and something else, but where like all the Marvel movies, there's always a scene where the hero has to go without a shirt. And they like say that they like basically plan for weeks for that one shot where
Right.
they eat nothing, they work out like crazy because they know that shot is coming in a month or whatever. It's probably the same thing here where like they planned the shoot around when Patrick Wilson would be at his buffest to get that shot, and then then they could hide it with the suit. But
That's
yeah,
right.
he put in the work, and that's what I said. I would not call Orm brother, I would call him daddy.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of horrible words going through my head right now. Ocean Master? Nah, he's the master of this.
Hey.
He's the master of my heart. He could ride my dolphin.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure my heart is exactly the phrase Jamie was thinking about.
I mean, it says something that in a movie with Jason Momoa and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I'm still crushing on Patrick Wilson. A lot of beautiful people in this.
Yeah, no kidding.
I will say it's another quick throwaway moment, but it also got me is when, first of all, James Wan gets full use out of how badass Black Manta looks. There are multiple moments where they do like a reveal of Manta and he's just so intimidating and cool. And one of those moments is when the power goes out and Tom Curry is in the lighthouse and he's looking for a flashlight and you just see the eyes light up in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So great. So great. But anyway, after Tom gets stabbed and they're not sure if he's going to make it, and Atlanta comes in, and when she stays with him and kind of rests her head on his chest, it was another one of those like quiet moments, but easy to miss where you're like, oh, like, I don't know, like it was really effective. Cause they were looked for each other for years, 30 years. Right. And so the fact that they were finally together again and she almost lost him. I don't know. I thought it was really effective.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's another thing I actually would have liked this movie to give me a little bit more of is Atlanta. But again, that's being greedy more than actually thinking it was needed to drive a point in the story or something.
Yeah, I get that, but I also am impressed that how much she is in it, like the fact that they gave her and Mara that awesome action scene at the beginning. I thought that was great and they didn't need to, and I love that they did. So that was
again, one of my favorite things in the first movie was her dealing with those Atlantean troops that come up into the lighthouse.
Yes.
I thought that was maybe the best fight sequence in that entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was literally what I was about to say. Is I was like, in the first movie, I didn't think we would see Atlanta in action, and we did, and it was awesome. And so I'm glad that they found room for her in this movie for her to get in on the action again.
All I'm saying is maybe give us a 2 hour and 10 minute, 2 hour and 15 minute movie, and make her part of the team at the third act. There, I'm just Again, I'm being greedy, and I know it, but
I get it. But also, like, again, it's easy to understand where she stays with Tom.
Hell, why not get him involved? Give him like a deep sea suit to get down there and get in on the action too, for that matter. Now that's just being ultra greedy. Like that's a billionaire wanting that extra $100,000 side part.
I mean, and we even get like a callback to King Atlan and get more of his story, which I thought was impressive. I also appreciated that in the first movie, they talk about the 7 kingdoms. And I want to say that when it came out, we were like, wait, I'm only counting 6. Am I missing the other one?
Yeah.
And I love that they use that as the launching point for this one. And we learn about the 7th kingdom, what it was, why we don't talk about it. I thought that was great. And then the flashback with Atlan and Kordax, and that was giving me strong Lord of the Rings in the best possible way. And it's that continuity. Like, it's the same King Atlan, like, and he looks the same, and it's like it's right from the first film. So it's just so seamless.
The fact that the what was his name again? Cordax.
Cordax, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God, you say that, it makes me think of Hordak for some reason.
Oh, I mean, it's not a million miles away.
No. But anyway, he has that moment where, you know, he's like confronting Arthur, or Arthur's confronting him, whichever the case may be. I can't quite remember at this moment. And he talks about him wearing his brother's armor.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty nice touch, because I was
It
like,
was.
oh yeah, he did get that from, you know, King Atlan's.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, all those connections are like right on. Nailed them. All right. Well, I do want us to give some final thoughts and all that good stuff. But before that, I also got to give a shout out to our other friends over at Magic Mind. Magic Mind is the all natural energy shot that I've been using since they were kind enough to send me some. And as I've said in the past, y'all, for me, it helps me in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I have a hard time waking up. But I take my little Magic Mind on my drive to work, and it works wonders. And that way, when I get to work, I'm ready to go. I'm productive for that first hour, where I used to use that first hour to just kind of space out and wake up. So if you are interested in Magic Mind, it's been really helpful. You can check it out. They should be in Sprouts Markets by now. So if you've got one of those near you, go check it out and see if they're carrying it. And that way you can give it a shot and give it a try. But I've been really happy with Magic Mind. And if you are interested in trying them out, there is a new link for January. You go to magicmind.com/JanBatCast. So Jan for January, Batcast. Magicmind.com/JanBatCast. And you can use the promo code that we have with them, which is BatCast20, to get a discount on any orders that you make online. Or if you just want to sample it, again, find a Sprouts and just pick up a couple and see if you like them. But I'll say they're green. I'm always like, oh, is this going to taste bad? No, they taste good. They're easy to drink. And so I've been really happy with them. And if you're looking for that little extra boost of energy, whether it be in the morning like me, or if you're more of like you need that pickup around 3 p.m., where usually against your better judgment, go get an extra cup of coffee or run to Starbucks or whatever, try filling that with Magic Mind. And I think that you will be very happy with it. So again, magicmind.com/JanBatCast. And the promo code is BatCast20. Give it a try, and I hope you like it, because I have been very happy with it. So thank you to Magic Mind for their partnership. And anybody out there who hasn't tried it yet, give it a shot. And I hope that it works for you the way it worked for me. But let's do some final thoughts on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And of course, some letter grades, because, you know, I can't help it. So, Jamie, final thoughts on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
I was entertained. My intellect was stimulated. My humor was sometimes stimulated for the wrong reasons, but sometimes stimulated for the right. I find the spectacle of this film to be great. You know, I love big, booming, creature-filled, special effects-filled things. I love that sort of stuff, and this one delivers those, and also delivers in character moments, and also delivers in story arcs for characters that stem all the way back to the first film. And I just think it's a very well done, very good quality film that I really love so much more than I don't about this film. So for me, this one really works. If it didn't work for you, I'm sorry, but I'm not in your camp. For me, this one's an A-.
All right, Preston.
A-. Very nice. Well, Jamie and I have a lot in common with this. I mean, this is just a really good comic book movie, you know, much like we've said. I mean, it's just an expansion of what James Wan created in the first installment. And, you know, for better or worse, depending on your taste, I mean, 5 to 10 minutes into this movie, you know exactly what you are getting. And, you know, it's colorful, it's exuberant, and you know, it's a spectacle, like Jamie said. Man, I feel pretty confident as far as letter grading goes. Oh man, this is tough. I'm kind of between two right now. I'm gonna go with a good old B+. I feel pretty confident in that rating there. And who knows? I might even see this for a third time while it's still in theaters. We'll see.
I I would love to. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I mean, we all saw the same movie. I think as far as a big epic fantasy comic book adventure, this it's a thrill ride in the best possible way. It delivers all of those things. It's pure entertainment and it's a blast to watch. And then it also has some really great characters and great character moments and some really great emotional moments as well. And so that really grounds all of the bonkersness of it to make it a very satisfying movie going experience. I had an awesome time with it. I love the first film. I still say that this is maybe a hair under the first film, but man, that's good company to keep. And it's also an extremely satisfying and worthy follow-up to the first film. So the fact that I get to walk away with two awesome Aquaman movies that I love and watch it as a double feature, like that's a good place to be. So I'm very grateful to James Wan and the team and Jason Momoa and, you know, the cast and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, the writer, and Rupert Gregson Williams, the composer, and the entire team for giving me two really badass Aquaman movies that I can love. Things that I never thought I would see in a movie that I did get to see in two of these, and just man, I love them. So I'm with Jamie, A minus.
Nice.
Yeah. So Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom from us, two A minuses and a B plus, but we're all living in that same neighborhood. It's just a damn good time. So I say strap in, go along for the ride. And even though this will be the end of this version, again, I'm just grateful that we've got this version and we got these two movies, because when the first movie came out, we were always like, oh, we're probably not going to get another. And the fact that we got another and that it's as good as it is, I think is a blessing as comic book fans. We're not going to say goodbye just yet, though, because we do have a little bit of time to answer some of your emails in the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Derek. What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
Okay, we're just going to do a couple of emails today just because of time, but I got a couple especially that are specific to Aquaman, so I'd like to address those first. First one here is from Benjamin. It says, "Hey, Aquacasters. Andy, I'm so sorry about your mom. She clearly did an amazing job. My thoughts are with you. So I saw the new Aquaman on opening night. My question, if they had done a more traditional Arthur Curry Aquaman instead of Aquabro, would that have changed? What would you have changed about the Lost Kingdom? So blonde hair Aquaman wearing the orange suit a lot and playing the character straight and so on. I know we need continuity from the previous movies, but I imagine a James Bond type recasting of Aquaman. I'm reading the new 52 Aquaman right now, and Jeff Johns and Ivan Rice do such a great job making the character fun, but also having a deeper meaning than tequila, burgers, and beer. Lost Kingdom felt like Aquaman when it was in a different, much worse movie than his villain. I'm a big Manta fan, and I liked a lot of what we got on that side. Here we go. Nothing will ever justify PP kinesis, so I would start there. From the depths of Atlantis, Benjamin. Thank you, Benjamin. So see, there you go. The PP thing did not work for everyone, but for me, I'm like, yeah, it's just a funny little joke. It's okay. What would I guess would you like a more traditional Aquaman, and what would you change about the movie if we had one? I guess is the question. Preston, thoughts?
Man, I don't know if I'm going to explicitly answer that question with this. I would just simply say, like, I love, yes, the comic iteration of Arthur Curry. I love what we see in the DC animated films. You know, I have zero problem with that. I would just say I also have personally, again, this is all up to, personal interpretation, but I don't have a problem with what we got from Jason Momoa in these movies. And considering this is, the only live action Aquaman we've had, there's not really a point of reference for something else. So it's just, it feels normal to me. You know what I'm saying? Would I be down with something else? Of course I would. But coming from my perspective, not having an issue with what we've gotten, like, it's kind of hard to say what that would look like. Just I hate to be basic, but it would just be much more traditional. You know what I mean? And I don't know. At least we get a flavor of something different with Momoa, again, for better or worse, depending on what you like. I've said a lot, not really answering the question, but I don't really know. I don't really know how to, because again, I'm just going from what we've gotten so far. We've yet to see anything different, so it's kind of hard to imagine a more traditional take on this story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a tricky question. I don't know if he's asking us to rewrite the movie like with a more traditional Aquaman or not, but I guess it's more just about, the Momoa interpretation versus what would be considered more traditional and
Right.
and how we feel. Jamie, what do you think?
I don't have any problem with Momoa or how it was portrayed, or maybe the look is completely different than what I'm used to reading in a comic book, but if you reference certain eras of Aquaman, he even still has that look minus the blonde hair, and I don't give a shit if his hair is blonde or black or green or whatever. I don't care about that. What I will say is, overall, I think he's pretty true to form for the character. Now, I'm not the world's foremost Aquaman expert. I know him from mostly Super Friends, New 52 and Rebirth era comics, and Brave and the Bold. So I don't see anything that Jason Momoa is doing that's completely out of line with any of those iterations, other than maybe the Super Friends one, which is probably the most traditional Aquaman, Silver Age-ish kind of stuff. But I feel like Momoa brings the badassness to Aquaman that he needed to be on a screen, to show people he's not the guy that they joke about on Big Bang Theory all the time. He's not the guy that's, the butt of jokes that even I was participating in prior to him showing up in, Batman v Superman for his cameo, or Justice League, or any of that stuff. I was one of those people that always did think Aquaman was a joke character, and James Wan and Jason Momoa and these people came out and said, no, he's not a joke. Let us show you why. And I think they did it very, very well. So I don't have any issue with what was done here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I understand Benjamin's question because it is certainly Aquaman, but incorporating a lot of Jason Momoa's personality, which we talked about earlier, right? They definitely use Momoa's personality to create this version of Aquaman, this version of Arthur. So I get that. Like you guys, I don't really have an issue with it. Because for the most part, I think it worked. I do understand, again, in this movie where maybe it was a little bit much here and there, but for the most part, I think it works. I do think that I think there is more to him than just tequila, burgers, and beer. I think that's an oversimplification, because Arthur, especially in this movie and the last one, has a lot of pathos, and there is a deeper meaning to him than just that surface level bro-ness of it all. So I don't have an issue with it. I like this version of Aquaman, but I think that the silver lining here is that with the reboot coming, it will be very easy to present a more traditional, quote unquote, Aquaman and have it very obvious that this is a new version, because Momoa's version is so distinctive. Having a more traditional blonde hair, blue eyed, a little more serious version of the character in this new DCU, it immediately draws that line and go, this is something completely different. And so I think this allows the opportunity to have a new Aquaman moving forward, where there's going to be no confusion and it's going to be very distinctive and very different from what we've had up till now.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, next message is real quick. It's from our pal Stuart from Guernsey. He just says, no question. I just wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I hope you've had a great holiday. Thanks for all that you do and the effort that you put in all year long to keep us entertained. I really couldn't imagine you guys not being a part of my life. Here's to 2024 and even more BatCast. Thanks, Stuart. So very nice. Stuart, back at you. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas and holiday season. I know we're on the other side of it now, and it's always sad. Oh, January blows. But yeah, we certainly appreciate the sweet message. And yeah, happy holidays. And here's to another year of BatCast. Here we go.
Is it too early for spooky season? No? Anybody?
Never. I mean, part of my, like Jamie, like we talked about recently, is now I'm catching up on all the 2023 movies. So is Jamie. That
Right.
includes a lot of horror movies.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah, it's okay. I don't know if you guys saw, I got the coolest calendar, the wall calendar that was Halloween all year round.
Yes, dude, I need to get that.
It's on sale on Amazon. Go look. I think I got it for like
okay.
$6. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yep, check it out. All right, this next one here is from Mark Bickford. It says, "Hey guys, I hope you finally watched the trailer and preview scene for Crisis because I'm anxious to hear your thoughts. I loved Aquaman, but I find myself wondering what the scene with Bruce Wayne could have been. Any thoughts? Also, did you notice that in the cheeseburger scene, Orm is wearing a Jabberjaw shirt? I swear these days WB gets more mileage out of Hanna-Barbera than they do out of Bugs Bunny. Finally, just for fun, if Andy gets a hall pass for Brendan, does Catherine get a hall pass for Jess? And who out of Andy and Catherine is getting the better deal?" Yours until Lobo crashes into a room and leads with, "Hey, what's up, Doc?" Mark. Oh, Mark. Okay, there's a lot in here. We did mention the Jabberjaw shirt. I love that detail. Yes, I noticed. It's awesome. Crisis, I still haven't watched the new trailer, but it comes out like in a week. Like it comes out very, very soon. So it'll be fun to just jump right in and watch it. If I get a hall pass for Brendan, does Catherine get a hall pass for Jess? Yes, she does, but I don't think she cares. I don't think that's her speed. So but yeah, she can have one. Absolutely. Who gets the better deal? Brendan gets the best deal. That's it.
Well, if I may just be a disgusting human being for just a moment.
Oh,
one
boy.
of these things I would not mind watching. The other one, maybe
Nope.
so. I'm just putting that out there.
Fair enough. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll let you guess which is which.
I can't
there.
imagine
That's
which
fair.
one he's talking about.
That's
Jeez,
right.
Let me think about it.
I'm not saying anything else. Y'all can figure it out for yourself.
Oh my God. All right. So then the real question, aside from all this silliness, Mark, is what do you think how do you think Bruce Wayne would have shown up? Jamie, what do you think?
I think he would have swung in behind him at the press conference and squatted down on the little fence wall behind him and said, "He's still just a guy that talks to fish," and then fires the grappling gun and swings off into the guys.
I wouldn't have been upset by that.
Yeah. Preston, what do you think?
Man, it's so tough because as we talked about, everything, seems so solid, right? I would have loved for there to have been a situation where, he intervened in one of the action scenes or something like that. But I hate to kind of go over what we've already said, but the ending seems to make the most sense, Maybe he could have, been at that press conference. Who knows? In attendance, right? Man, I'm trying to think of an area that would really work, and that just seems to make the most. And like we said, it could have been a post-credit sequence of some sort that could have definitely made sense as well. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, like I said, I think the easy answer is what I said earlier. Is in that final montage speech you cut to Gotham and Bruce. We know that it was a Bruce Wayne cameo. It was not a Batman cameo,
right?
Because Ben Affleck showed up for a day on site and he was dressed like Bruce Wayne. So, if it wasn't that, my hunch is like Jamie said, it was probably a post-credits thing where maybe Arthur is getting advice from Bruce now that he's made this big stand and revealed Atlantis to the world. And maybe it was sort of a quick conversation about what happens next and Bruce giving him advice that would have led to whatever happened next. That's pure speculation. The other thing is I saw this rumor making the rounds about originally the post-credit scene was going to be Arthur showing up at the Hall of Justice, and it would have been Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman and the Flash. And I love that idea. if I was in charge, I would have shot that as like a little button at the end of the DCEU. I think that would have been amazing.
Man.
I don't believe that rumor for a second. I think that is 100% fabricated as wishful thinking by fans. Because I don't think that was real, but I wish it would have been, because I think that would have been great. But no, I think it was probably something much more smaller in scale, where it was Arthur and Bruce having a chat about something.
Man, you don't even want to hear the giant crack that my heart would have issued if I had to sit through that scene at the end.
Yeah. Again, like I saw it. It didn't get a lot of traction, which again says a lot, but I was like, to me, it sounds like wishful thinking. I also would have wished for it, but no, I don't believe it for a second.
I would have spent the next year and a half wondering about that, in addition to when the hell I'm going to see my Legion of Doom movie.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, and to go back to it, I think it's smart that they just didn't use either of the cameos, because you don't want to make promises you can't pay off. Again, I think that's also why the ending of The Flash was what it was, because otherwise they would have just been making promises like the end of Justice League,
and yet we are still seeing articles with the headline of George Clooney not returning as Batman.
Yeah.
It's just like, really, people? Really? Come on.
Exactly. So it would have been nice. It'd be nice if they would have dropped the the Bruce Wayne cameos as like deleted scenes or something. That would have been kind of, at least that way we could see them. But I think it was the right choice to not include them in the movie.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately.
There's always the Blu-ray release.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Those were the Aquaman specific emails. So I'm just going to close the mailbox there. We have a bunch more emails in the mailbox. So if you're out there listening and you're like, wait a minute, I sent something. I know. We'll get to it. But just in the interest of time, so people can go about their day, we're going to save those for the next couple of episodes. I'll probably parse them out over the next couple of episodes. But we do have fun things planned, fun things in store. We're going to say goodbye to the DCEU sooner than later. And a lot of plans over the next few episodes. So stay tuned for more Holy BatCast. And if you do have something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. That's where we're going to wrap up this episode of the show. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thanks for making the time to talk some Aquaman today. I certainly appreciate it. I know the listeners do as well. Jamie, especially you in your weakened condition. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I managed to survive somehow.
You're alive. I love it.
Now I get to go spend the rest of my afternoon yelling at the last Raiders game for the year. So.
Oh, enjoy that. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I get to go take down the Christmas tree.
Oh,
it's the last thing left. Everything else is down, but I had to do that. So
yeah, well, we had to do it 6 times because we have 6 Christmas trees. So
well, wow. I already took down the Batman one, both of them.
Oh, nice.
I already did that. So yeah, we have 3, but I took down the 2 small ones. Now I can do the big one. Anyway, anywhere we can find you, Jamie, or you still happily?
No, I'm hiding
incognito.
Y'all can't find me nowhere except maybe Letterboxd, because I'm kind of busy on Letterboxd right now.
Aren't we both? We're in a mad rush to the end of January until I make you record our year-end specials.
Well, like I said, if you can give me till, because of my situation currently, we can move it back from May to probably about mid-March right now.
Oh, wow. How generous.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank your sickness then.
Salute.
Yep. All right. Preston, thank you as well. Always a pleasure. Where can we find you?
Oh, no. Thank you guys for having me, man. Always awesome to join you guys. Yeah. As Jamie said, find me at Letterboxd. That's where I do most of my social media presence these days anyway. At Preston967, you can find me over there. It's been a great first week of the year from a movie watching perspective. So yeah, lots of logging happening over there. Hey, if you're looking for something to listen to, this isn't going to be everybody's thing, but if you are a Tales from the Crypt fan, boy, do I have something for you. My friends Dan and Hunter and I have a show called Horrors from the Vault. You can find us on all your podcast platforms, where we kind of disorder style, as Andy knows, goes episode by episode covering Tales from the Crypt. So if horror, spooky, that's your thing, join us over there. It's a lot of fun. You can find me on Twitter at Preston967, on Facebook, in the RF for RM forums under Preston Green. I'm around. Just find me.
Great. I already told you guys where to find me, but thank you as always for joining us and for downloading the show. Please do subscribe or follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And something else that you can do to support us is just leave us a review wherever you get your shows. Ideally, a positive one. That would be best. Also, visit holybatcast.com or find us on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. You will find us. You got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox? That email address, again, is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by the talented Gaurav Venkateswar. You can find his work at gvtunes.com. And don't forget to check out our sponsors. If you go to manscaped.com, use the promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. If you go to Magic Mind, go to magicmind.com/JanBatcast and use the promo code BATCAST20. But that will do it. Thank you, guys. On behalf of Jamie and Preston, I've been Andy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same Aqua time, same Aqua channel.
When your fire burns out, shine a light through the cloud. When you need a friend, if you sink or swim, I follow you off of the deep.
Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for. On behalf of Jamie and Preston, I've been Andy. I forgot your names. I'm sorry. Oh gosh, I see. This is what happens when I don't record for a couple weeks. I blame Christmas. Damn you, Santa Claus. Okay.